Okay, this is a recap of the division lesson that we had in class. You know how to divide the smaller digits. Now we're just making the digits larger, but we're still going to follow the same process. I gave you a pink paper to glue into your journal that has this information on it. So I just rewrote it for you. We go with the saying, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? And we take the first letter of each one of those. So we have the D for divide, the M for multiply, the S for subtract, the C for check, some of y'all called it the cheese check, and the B for bring down. Remember what I said about checking. If you check along the way, you're going to limit your error finding to small chunks instead of waiting till you get to the bottom of this huge problem and try to go back and find your mistake somewhere along there. If you check as you go, it makes it a lot easier and a lot less time consuming to actually find those errors. And then remember what I said about bring down. Once you bring down, you must go back and complete the whole process again. Remember, bring down is kind of like pushing that button that starts the cheeseburger machine again, and we have to go back to the top and complete all the way through. You should never bring down and stop. You can't do that. So you bring down, you have to go all the way through to the end again. So I'm going to give you a couple of problems and we're going to go through these. I wanted you to have a video to look back at in case you didn't remember what your notes meant or you made a note that didn't make sense. I wanted you to have something to go back and look. So let's say we have 2,634 divided by 21. Remember, I told you we're going to take this number and we're going to round it. So I know 21 is about 20. So I'm going to go over here and make a list of 20s. Just to help me out. I'll just go that far and then we'll stop. So I just counted by 20 and just made a list. So now I know that I'm looking at about 20. So I'll say how many groups of about 20, because I'm looking at this first digit only. How many groups of about 20 can I get out of 2? Well, if I have 2 pencils, you cannot take a group of 20 out, so I can't do that. So you can put a 0 or you can put an X, and then that opens you up to making this number larger. So now I'm looking at 26. So I say, okay, how many groups of about 20 can I get out of 26? Well, if I don't already know that, I can use my chart and find it. Well, I know I can get to 20, but I can't go 40 because it's too much. So I go to 20, and that's 1 time. So I'm going to check it with my real number. I used 20 to kind of get in the ballpark of where I needed to be. So I'm not doing a bunch of multiplication and guessing. But now I have to check it with the real number to make sure it's really going to work. So I'm going to come over here and say 21 times 1, which we know is 21. So that will work because 21 is smaller than 26, but it's very close. So I'm going to go up here and put a 1. Now, that was my divide step. Now I multiply. 1 times 21 gives me 21. Now I will subtract. So that gives me 5. This is my check. This is my very important check. Is 5 smaller than 21? It must be smaller. So, yes, it is. So, that tells me if this 5 winds up being bigger than 21, I made a mistake somewhere in this first section. And I got to figure out what it is before I move on. If I wait till later, I'm having to check this whole problem to try to find out where my mistake is. And I usually wind up just doing the problem again. And that's a lot of time that's wasted that you can avoid by simply following the steps and doing the check. So I'm good on my check, so now I'm going to bring down. I draw my arrow all the way down, so I'm bringing down my 3. So now this is the number that I'm looking at. That's where my problem is now. So I say, again, go all the way back to the beginning. I've got to do my divide. How many groups? How many groups of about 20 am I going to get out of 53? Well, if I'm not sure, I can say, well, 20 was 1, 40 was 2, 60 is 3. So I know that's too big. So let's try 2. So I try it with my real number, 21. 21 times 2. And don't ever erase these. You might need them later, and if you've already got them figured out, it's so much faster just to go find it and use it. So 21 times 2 gives me 42. Will 42 work here? Yes, that's as close as I'm going to get without going over. So I'm going to use 2. Remember, my numbers are nice and neat, one on top of the other. Neat work is going to either save you or break you. So 2, now I'm to multiply. 2 times 21 gives me the 42 that I already figured out. Now I'm going to subtract, and I have 11. Now I'm going to check. Is 11 smaller than 21? Yes, it is. So I'm okay. So now I continue. Now I can bring down. So I bring down my 4. And I know that there's no more to bring down over here. So I kind of do a dark squiggle so I know that I'm done after this process. I bring down, so I must go back and complete. So I brought down, so now the number I'm looking at is this 114. How many groups of about 20 am I going to get out of 114? So I go through here and I look. Well, there's 100 and there's 120. I know 120 is too much, so we're going to go with a 100 and see if that works. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5. So we're going to try 5 with the real number. So 21 times 5 gives me 5, gives me 105. Will that work? Yes. So I bring it over here. I subtract, and then I subtract my numbers. 5 cannot come out of 4, so I'm going to have to make this a 14, and this is going to go to a 0. So 14 minus 5 is 9. Sorry, my brain was stopping, not working. So 9. I still have to check, is this number smaller than 21? Yes. I'm good. Is there anything I want to bring down? But there's nothing left to bring down. I've already brought everything down. So I'm finished. So I come up here and I take this remainder and I write it up here. Whoops, I didn't put my 5 up here. That's a common mistake. I get too busy in trying to teach it and forget to do it, and y'all forget to write it. So we used 5 that last time to get my 105. I just forgot to put the 5 up there. So now it's up there. So now I'm going to do my remainder, 9. So this is my answer. 125, remainder 9. I'm going to do one more example, but I don't want to cover up my words there. So we're going to start right here. So I'm going to say, let's do this one. 1,392 divided by 22. So again, I look at this number first. It's about 20. So I'm going to make a list of 20s. Oops, sorry. Okay, got it right. So I made my list of 20s. So now I'm ready to start. I need to divide. I need to find my groups. So how many groups of about 20 can I get out of 1? Because that's the number that I'm looking at. It's just that 1. Well, I can't get any out of there, so I'm just going to put an X on top and move on. Okay, fine. I can't get it out of 1. Let's see if I can get it out of 13. How many groups of about 20 am I going to get out of 13? None. So I put an X on top of that 3 because that doesn't help me. Now I open up to 139. How many groups of about 20 am I going to get out of 139? Well, I don't know. Well, let's go check our list. And sometimes I like to go ahead and number them. Whoops, I can't count today. Just so I don't have to count them every time and make a mistake. I'll just go ahead and write it there. So how many groups of about 20 am I going to get out of 139? So I go here and I look, and I say, well, there's 140. That's close to 139. Okay, I could check that. Let's see what we get. But 140 is too big because it's already bigger than 139. So that's not going to work. So let's back it up 1 and see what we get. So let's try 6. So we're going to take our real number, 22. I'm going to just jot it down over here, and we said we're going to try 6. So let's try 6 and see what we get. So we get 12 here, and we get 13 here. 132. Will that work? Yes. So I'm going to use 6. Now I'm going to multiply. 6 times 22 gives me what? 132. So I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to subtract. So I'm left with 7. So I have to do my check. Is this number smaller than this number out here? Yes. So I'm okay. Now I've got to go and bring down. So I bring down my 2. I brought down a number. I have to go all the way through again. So how many groups of about 20 am I going to get out of 72? Let's look at my list. 80 is already too big, so I know I have to jump back to 3. So let's take my real number, multiply it times 3 to see what I get for real. And I get 66. So will that work? Yes, it will. So I'm going to put my 66 here. I used 3, so it goes up top. I'm going to subtract. Okay, so I did my divide. I found my 3. I multiplied 3 times 22, which I already did, and I just brought it over. So now I'm at the subtract. So here we go. 12. This is going to go to a 6. So 12 minus 6 gives me 6. Now I need to check. Is this number smaller than this number? Yes. So I'm going to check it off. Now I'm going to bring down, but I don't have anything left to bring down, so I'm done. So I just take this 6 and write it up here as a remainder 6. Your answer is 63, remainder 6. Now, to check these problems, I take my answer, 63, times 22, and I should get this number in here. I have a remainder of 6, so I have to add that back in there. So we'll do that in just a second. So 2 times, let's go to our multiplication. 2 times 3, I'm going to wipe the window, and I'm going to multiply my first chore. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 6 is 12. I'm done wiping the window, so my chore is finished. I clean house, but there's nothing to clean, and I make Mama happy. Now I take my second chore, and I got to go back to the beginning of the window, and I have to wipe it clean. So 2 times 3 gives me 6. 2 times 6 gives me 12. I could carry my 1, but there's nothing to carry it on, so it's just going to drop down anyway. So I just went ahead and wrote it. So both of my chores are done. There's no more left, so I'm finished. I just need to add these together. So 1386, I'm not quite there, but remember, I still have this remainder 6 to add in. So I'm going to add my 6. And this equals this. 1392, 1392.